apparently that did happen. So, you want to be careful that's clean. But if anybody says kids are dying from heroin overdoses, that part's false. And you might find a turd or two. Because diapers do come off.
Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required.
We're the podcast that recaps all the episodes of the Big Bang Theory. No spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot.
Make yourself a grasshopper.
And enjoy the ride. Hello there, Ryan.
Hello, Rob.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm doing amazing because we just watched Season 3, Episode 14, The Einstein Approximation. For any new listeners out there, I'm Rob. This is my co-host Ryan. We are Theoretical Nonsense, the podcast that recaps, reviews, and deep dives facts from the Big Bang Theory, which we call IQ points. As a reminder to everyone, I've seen the series multiple times, but this is Ryan's first time watching, so we do our best to do no spoilers. Ryan has also been told he's very similar to Sheldon, so we keep a point tally of how close Ryan is to Sheldon. Any updates for us?
Last time Sheldon got a a leap ahead, and we are at 85 points, not like Sheldon, but 90 like Sheldon. So Sheldon has 5 more points than not like Sheldon. He took the game, yeah.
Yeah. Well, a little bit of housekeeping before we dive into it. Don't forget to email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Anything else to add? Or shall we just get started?
I think we get started. I just want to remind everybody, if you want to say hi, we check our emails and would love to hear from you. Send a good word or any suggestions you have about the show. We are interested in hearing.
Yeah, or just send us a 5-star review. We would love that.
We love those too. They make our days.
Yeah, this episode is actually airing a couple days after my birthday, so it could be a great birthday gift to me.
Yeah. My birthday was a couple months ago, but I'll take it as a birthday gift too.
Yeah.
A little belated, but I'm not too picky.
Better late than never.
Exactly. Which is funny because as we get started, this episode aired on my birthday.
February 1st. Look at that.
2010. And I remember that birthday. I remember what I was doing. I was in Nebraska, and it was kind of a strange night. I went to a few bars, but I remember it just like it was a decade ago. Oh, it was over a decade ago, but I do remember it. So I'm like, interesting.
Well, what strange things happened? Care to share?
I was going through a divorce, so I was kind of like lashing out, and I got kind of drunk. Not like meanly or anything, but like I was kind of like, oh, I can do whatever I want. And like got drunk and like just acted goofy and more so than I would typically, because I was like halfway through a divorce. So it was a good birthday. No, it was an okay one. I don't know. It was a good time. I had good friends with me, and they made the night very special.
And they protected you from anyone that wanted to beat you up for being weird.
Exactly. They're very protective of me. Actually, they're like, we don't know that guy. If you want to fuck him up, go for it. It's not his birthday or anything.
Well, all right. Shall we get started?
Yeah. So this is Season 3, Episode 14, The Einstein Approximation. Again, it aired February 1st, 2010. Directed by Mark Sandrowski. Writers Chuck Lorre, Bill Prady, and Steve Milaro. And do you have initial thoughts on this? Because I have some initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts were, when I first watched it, and every time up until then, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was really fun. It's interesting seeing the thought process of Sheldon, seeing what happens to him, like, because he's so robotic, seeing what happens to him when his gears get caught. But after doing the IQ points, I see a lot of issues with this episode, because I did a few IQ points that actually don't make sense for what he's doing.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think I like the way you put it, that his gears are getting tangled up, because I feel like what he's doing is not practical or pragmatic. And like, for me, I'm like, I don't know. This is my
So okay,
robotic side talking. I'm like, I
I
wouldn't
will
do
say
that.
I was thinking about this too. Like, it doesn't really make sense because history has shown that Sheldon does know and understand not only biology but a little bit of psychiatry and psychology. So he
Hmm.
should understand that he needs rest. That he should just go to sleep. However, I understand what Sheldon's doing because I can be like this too. If I have something caught in my head, I can't sleep. I can't rest until I solve it, or if I need to do it. If there's like a task, like I mentioned this before on the podcast. I actually just moved into a new home. I'm actually in the new office now.
Yay!
But this past week has been a brutal nightmare because of just like what Sheldon was going through. There are certain specific tasks. Granted, it's a little different from problem solving physics. There are just certain tasks that needed to be done, which kind of created this almost like an itch, and I couldn't help but scratch it. So I was up like 6 a.m. to midnight most days last week just trying to accomplish the things that I wanted to do because I knew I couldn't relax until I get it done. And I do feel like that's what's happening with Sheldon right now. So I do say like it doesn't make sense, but it kind of does make sense.
I and it's a little jump ahead. For some reason, the ball pit scene pissed me off. I don't know
Oh, I
why,
love
but
the
it scratched on my nails, and like it's in the credits too. They go back as like kind of an outtake scene to do it
yeah.
again, and I was just like, I and I watched it the second time. I'm like, still don't like it. I don't know what about it grind my gears, but it really, I don't know.
Is it because it's a little out of character for
Maybe
Sheldon
that's
to
what it
act
was. It
that
was
goofy? But I
too
feel like
goofy.
that's what sleep deprivation does to you. You get a little loopy and you get a little wild. So, but
That's
I totally get it. Yeah,
fair.
it isn't the most consistent thing with his personality, but it in that situation, it's like maybe it is.
But on the bright side, I have some information about ball pits. So I don't even think it's an IQ point. I just looked up some stuff. There's some urban legends that I'm going to talk about.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, so should we get into it?
Yep, let's
All
do it.
right. So we start at the apartment, and it is morning, and Sheldon is flipping around, trying to look at his board, at his notes. And Penny comes out, and she's kind of confused, but mentions that she needs her coffee first. And he explains that he's looking at his work from his peripheral to engage his superior colliculus of his mind. And this is the first IQ point. And again, it didn't make sense to me from my research. I it didn't add up to what I was understanding. I understood that he was trying to look at something from a new angle to kind of jumpstart his imagination, or maybe not imagination, but make connections subconsciously, so that he could make sense and find an answer for the problem. He hasn't said what the problem is, but find an answer to it. And apparently, so my IQ point starts with the Encyclopedia of Neurological Sciences, the superior colliculus, or the optic tectum, is what they say, a laminated structure in the roof of the membrane. Basically, from what I gathered, it helps us with orienting behaviors, basically from our visual sensory, converts our what we see into information and targeting commands. The U.S. National Library of Medicine says it contributes to the interaction with the environment. So basically, it helps us do things like understand where we are, how to act in our spatial awareness. Like, it helps us process faces. So I'm guessing, like, when we see faces in our bread, or like a mold on the ceiling, and say that looks like Jesus or something, That's our probably the colliculus kind of misinterpreting, trying to establish an image or something visually. And I could be, yeah, that's what I gathered. But again, goes into more depth. And again, I'm unsure how this might help him brainstorm. Activating the colliculus is more about visual understanding, not necessarily sparking the subconscious or conscious understandings and processing parts of his brain. Did you do anything on that?
I did. I actually did an IQ point on this as well, and I kind of found the same thing. After researching this, it doesn't really make sense what Sheldon is doing. Like, there really isn't a reason why he needs to engage his superior colliculus in order to find that eureka moment. Because it's like you were saying, the superior colliculus, it's actually the part of the brain that directs behavioral responses towards stimuli in the environment. So it receives information from the environment and then uses that information to initiate a behavioral response appropriate to the current environment. So I wrote down a couple examples. So if you were sitting in the stands of a baseball game and someone hit a home run, you would follow the ball with your head and your eyes because it's an environmental thing.
Yeah.
Another example is if you see a snake. This information goes through the superior colliculus and we reflexively sense danger.
It was my understanding that sound goes through a different part, like what's the opposite of superior? Inferior colliculus or something. But there's like different parts of the brain that kind of process this information. Like you're saying, this is mostly about vision in the environment, like looking at the baseball or seeing the snake and saying, I'm in danger.
Yeah. So him trying to do this, and I mean, the way he explained it and what he's trying to accomplish does not make sense.
Yeah. I guess there's the old saying, try looking at it from a different angle or a new perspective, but he doesn't really say that as why he's doing it. And there, as far as I know, there's not a whole lot of research or any research saying that if you literally look at it differently, you will think about it differently. But so, yeah. All right, so that was kind of an IQ point saying, I don't know, Sheldon, maybe you're too sleep deprived already. So Penny says she usually just has coffee. And then Sheldon mentions that he's been up all night, explains that he's stuck. And he starts running back and forth. And this is when Leonard comes out and chastises Penny, says that if you don't put him in his crate at night, he'll run all over the apartment. And we kind of know that, again, he's trying to look at this from different angles, I guess, to spark his brain. But, again, they're just kind of making fun of him for doing stuff. Sheldon starts covering his vision, almost like he has not monocle, but a telescope. And Leonard makes a joke that he's looking for the alligator that ate his hand. Sheldon says it wasn't an alligator, it was a crocodile that ate Hook's hand after Peter Pan cut it off. And so Leonard says...
I did an IQ point on that.
Oh, on Peter Pan?
No, just on crocodiles and alligators.
Oh,
I know everyone knows the difference, but I thought about this because with my kid, one of the best things that he does is when you sing row, 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 row your boat. I didn't know that there was another verse that is, if you see a crocodile, don't forget to scream. Did you know that? I only know this because of Rachel. So it's row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. If you see a crocodile, don't forget to scream. And I love it. And I know that, and I love it because my kid is at that cute age where he screams every time you say crocodile now. Or alligator, because I've heard the song go both ways between a crocodile and an alligator. So I was like, you know what? I know there's a big difference between crocodiles and alligators, but since they mentioned it in the episode, I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've heard, but I never remember what the difference is.
Yeah. So this is going to be very helpful. Yes, both will destroy you.
Yeah.
Unless you're Arnold Schwarzenegger.
And And then you just like
I
destroy a bicep or two.
Yeah. Well, both are in the same reptilian order, Crocodilia, but are in separate families. Crocodiles are in the Crocodilidae family, and alligators are in the Alligatoridae family. So they're basically evolutionary cousins. In terms of color, alligators are often gray or black, and crocodiles are olive or tan. Behaviorally, crocodiles are generally more aggressive than alligators. Snout shape: alligators have a U-shaped snout and show less teeth when their mouths are closed. They're made to have strong bite force used to crush their prey, like turtles. And crocodiles have a V-shape snout with more teeth showing, used to ensnare their prey, like fish or larger animals like zebras.
All right. I remember that. That's how I picture them. Is the crocodiles have more teeth, and it's kind of more elongated, more V-shaped,
Yes.
and alligators are more U and seems thicker. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like crocodiles are almost like more slender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And beautiful.
In terms of habitat, alligators have a preference to freshwater, marshes, swamps, and slow-moving rivers, whereas crocodiles have a broader tolerance for salinity. They can be found in both freshwater and brackish habitats. Geographically, alligators are primarily found in China and the southeastern United States, particularly in states like Florida, Louisiana, Georgia, and parts of the Gulf Coast. Crocodiles have a more widespread distribution. They can be found in North America, Central and South America, Africa, Australia, parts of Asia, and apparently Neverland.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense because Neverland is an island in an ocean, so it'd be saltwater.
Yeah.
Right?
That's just good writing right there.
Yeah, somebody did their research.
Yep.
I can't
well,
say
that's
that
what I have.
I have had alligator before. I had it when I was in Louisiana. But I've never had or a crocodile, and I've never seen crocodile.
I feel like they have alligator a lot. It was always Bite of Seattle. It was always the thing. It was always the exotic meat that they had in Bite of Seattle. I don't know if they still do it, but it kind of tastes like chicken.
That's what I remember. It was kind of like chicken.
Yeah. A little tougher, a little stringy, but
yeah, I'd probably go with chicken over alligator. But if you want to try it, I think it's fun to try.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can fucking kill me, and I'm hating it.
Don't feel bad because I'm sure they're assholes.
Yeah, that's my thought. Do you hear? Man, I don't want to tell anybody where I live, but just a couple months ago,
I'll bleep it out.
All right, house burned down.
I'm not going to bleep it out.
You're gonna post it. The episode.
And here's his actual address on the screen right now.
And his social security number.
And where he keeps his hide key.
A house burned down and they had an alligator in it. And apparently the alligator didn't make... No, what was it? They had several weird species that burned up in the fire. But I think the alligator escaped. That's what it was. I'd have to
Oh my god,
up,
this is coming back to me.
Right? It's so weird. Like, who the fuck keeps that as a pet? And if you do keep it as a pet, don't let your house burn down and don't let it escape. What the fuck? But I think they found it. I think they did find it and it was dead or it didn't survive long. I don't know. It's too cold up here for alligators.
Yeah.
Okay, so they differentiate between alligator and crocodile. And Leonard says that maybe Sheldon should get a fresh start. And Sheldon says that's a great idea, picks up his board and throws it out the window. We hear a horn blow. And I did an IQ point because this is one of the things that I think was completely out of Sheldon's character. What he did was completely illegal. and I couldn't find anything specific about this happening, but he basically could be charged with assault or even manslaughter, homicide, depending on what happened because he threw that out. Definitely littering. But I found an article in The Guardian about a student in London who was in a protest a few years ago. I think it was 2018. I can't remember. I don't have the date here. But he was 18 years old, and he threw a fire extinguisher from the roof of a building, and he was sentenced to 32 months in jail for violent disorder. And again, laws are a little bit different in England than they are in the United States, but it's going to be about the same thing. I don't know if he would be charged for that or what, but he would definitely be charged, and probably similar jail length. And I guess a cardboard dry erase board isn't as tough as a fire extinguisher, but still, if it fell into traffic, he could be charged.
From the fourth floor? Like, if that corner hit someone, that could do some damage.
And two other things. In fact, I'm going to skip to this part. How Stuff Works had a really interesting article saying that if you threw a penny from the top of the Empire State Building, and they do the math, it would probably hurt somebody but not kill them.
Because of the wind resistance.
If you threw a roll of pennies, that could probably kill them.
Oh.
So a board with a sharp edge might, like, if it hit them in the head or in the neck or something, it could cause bleeding, or that might actually cause some damage. The other article I had, and this was in China, which again, their laws are different than the US, but when it comes to homicide, it's not all that much different. ChinaDaily.com.cn said that throwing objects from buildings was going to be considered homicide. That legally, it has become an issue of a disregard to public safety, and could lead to convictions by dangerous means, intentional injury, or intentional homicide. So I'm thinking that if China is cracking down on people throwing stuff out of buildings, the U.S. probably would crack down on if somebody got hurt. Like, we have the criminal punishment system, but definitely we have the civil, where somebody could probably throw a lawsuit at Sheldon too, saying that you threw something and caused me to crash my car. You owe me $1 million. All of the above leads me to think that Sheldon is too smart, even in a sleep-deprived state, that he wouldn't be as willy-nilly to throw something out his fourth floor window. That seemed weird to me, and it was kind of funny, but at the same time, I'm like, that's not realistic. And maybe it's because I feel like if I did it, somebody would immediately throw a lawsuit on my ass. So I'm like, that's not true or fair. So again,
you're not lucky enough.
I couldn't get away with it, right? And I searched like a number of forums because I saw a lot of like theoretical situations, but besides that London Guardian article from London, I didn't see any actual lawsuits or criminal cases, but basically people saying, what would happen if I did this? And everybody's like, yeah, you would be charged, that there are legal implications. There's one that I saw, like, I think it was on a lawyer website. I don't know if it was a joke, but the person's like, I follow a guy around and throw things at him every day, like pieces of candy, coins, objects. And when he sees me, I run away really quickly. Could I get in legal trouble for this? And like the response was like, you need to stop doing that. And
so you just follow someone?
Right. The original poster is like, okay, that's great advice. What if I do it like just once a week? Like, is that okay? Like, what the... Walk around and throw shit at a guy. Like, what is going on in your head?
Wait, and it's the same guy?
Yeah. He just doesn't like the guy and throws shit at him. That was a weird post. Okay, so that's my second IQ point. Anything else on that one?
I got nothing on that. But yeah, now that you're kind of pointing it out, this actually, it is, I thought it was funny, but it is a very slapsticky episode.
It's very slapsticky. You're right. I
Yeah,
felt like it was more like a
that's what it is. Yeah.
Three Stooges type thing, right?
Yeah, with the ball pit, throwing that out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even the scene going to the job recruiter is a little like it's a little what's another word? It's been slapstick. It's like not lazy. It's just like kind of like dumb. Is that the right
That's
word?
not a fair word.
It's not that. Yeah,
But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Almost like physical humor or something, right?
yeah. And even like in the restaurant and everything, we'll get to that. But I did not like all the stuff at the restaurant.
The thing in the
So
with the marbles and stuff. Yeah. Even
yeah.
we didn't see much of the skating, but I could. Some of the skating would actually. I want to talk about the skating later.
All right, we'll get into that later. We're getting ahead of ourselves.
we're jumping ahead. All right, so we're at the intro, and we cut to the cafeteria. Howard asks how long Sheldon has been stuck. Leonard says it's been 30 hours, but emotionally, he's going on 29 years. Howard asks if Leonard has tried rebooting him. Leonard says no, it's probably just a firmware problem. Or maybe probably not just, but it is a firmware problem. Raj comes and sits down and makes the big mistake of just mentioning that the skating rink is going to have a disco night because Howard and Leonard pick up on that and decide to do a double date, pretty much eliminating Raj from it. Raj says that's great because he didn't really want to go in the first place, even though it was his idea. He just prefers to find entertainment for everybody else to do. Howard says Sheldon is gone, and Leonard. Leonard mentions that Sheldon has used butter for deodorant that morning, and Howard mentions that that's why I smell popcorn, right? And then they talk about how Sheldon hasn't been this stuck since he tried to make sense of Matrix 3. And I feel like that's fair because although I love the Matrixes, they really went off. They tried to wrap some stuff up in the fourth one, but I still feel like it was not explained well. So anyways...
Well, how about some Rotten Tomato scores on The Matrix?
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I won't call this an IQ point because it's just Rotten scores. Well,
That's fair.
Rotten Tomato scores. So, the first Matrix in 1999 had a Rotten Tomato score of 83% and an audience score of 85%. The Matrix Reloaded came out on May 16th, 2003. Rotten Tomato score of 73 and an audience score of 72. And this is where we start going downhill. The Matrix Revolutions came out about 6 months later. I remember it was a big deal that it came out back to back.
Yeah.
In the theaters. November 5th, 2003. Rotten Tomato score, 34%. And an audience score of 60%. Not great. It was not a great movie. And then the new one that just came out in 2021, The Matrix Resurrections, Rotten Tomato score of 63% and an audience score of 63%. And just to throw it in there, the Animatrix. It was an animated. The animated shorts that came out just after the Matrix Reloaded on June 3rd, 2003. Rotten Tomato score 89%. So it actually scored the highest out of all of the Matrixes,
even over the first one.
Yep, and audience score of 78.
I love the Animatrix. There was an episode, if anybody hasn't watched it, like you don't need to watch it for the movies to make sense, but they're just kind of like side pieces and little explanations for not side quests, but side stories.
Yeah.
But I remember one where there's these kids and I want to say they're in Japan and they go to like this abandoned house that's supposed to be haunted, and it's actually just a glitch in the Matrix. So like they open up a door and it's an abyss to nothing. And there's like a room where everything floats because the Matrix has just like fucked up its programming. And then like, of course, the, what are they called? The programs come in and demolish the house because they realize there's a glitch and they have to destroy the glitch in the Matrix. Do you remember that one? Did you see that one?
I do remember them jumping in the house and kind of floating. I do remember that part.
I don't know why I love that one so much, but I like the animation style and the concept of maybe that's how haunted houses are just glitches in our reality.
It kind of reminds me of what they're doing right now with Star Wars. How they're doing Visions. How like they're doing like a bunch of short stories within the universe, or not even within the universe. They're just stories involving Star Wars. So it's not necessarily canon with like the rest of the story or anything like that. But the Animatrix is basically that, but within the Matrix universe.
Talking about Star Wars, I just picked up a book. I don't read much Star Wars, but it's called Death Troopers, and it's about an Empire ship finding a decimated ship, and apparently there's a virus on it. Basically, stormtroopers turn into zombies, and I'm really curious where this is gonna go. Zombie stormtroopers. Yes.
Nice.
I remember seeing The Matrix originally, and I remember like not even knowing what it was. Friends just like, "Do you want to go see a movie?" I'm like, "Sure," and we went to see The Matrix, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like, it blew my mind when I first saw it because I went in completely blindsided. I had never heard anything about it. And,
well, to be fair, even the trailers were very cryptic. I remember just like watching that and like, okay, it's an action. It's kind of sci-fi, but I don't know anything about it. And like you said, you watch it and it's like, what?
What the what?
And the exploding head emoji was born that day.
It was. Neo came up with it. He said there will be an emoji.
I will code it myself. I am the one, and I will make it happen.
And then there was. Interesting. So yeah, third movie, not so good. But they tried, and you got to give them an A for effort.
Even Resurrections, I was kind of shocked how. I'm shocked that it got a 63%. To be honest.
I didn't hate it. I think 60 is probably kind of low, but yeah, I thought it was better than the third one. But also, everybody's getting older, so
well, I don't know. I just wasn't a big fan of it. I only watched it once, and once was enough. And I don't know. I feel like it. I don't know. I just don't feel like it added too much to the story. I feel like in my own headcanon, I feel like it would have been better to explain like the robots decided to like, you know, break the pact and the truce and everything like that. And I felt like it would have been such a better FU to the human race if they actually created like another agent in the shape of Neo. So I wanted Keanu Reeves to come back as the villain.
A younger version of Keanu Reeves, like computer.
That would be the biggest mindfuck. That it's like rather than Agent Smith or a Smith-like agent, it's in the shape of their savior. That's what I was kind of hoping for, but
you know, pop quiz. Do you know who was originally up to play Neo? Keanu Reeves was not the first pick.
Okay, it's 1999. Who are the biggest stars? Brendan Fraser?
Nope. And I can put it this way: they had to change things around because they said that they would have needed to make Morpheus white.
Oh, Will Smith?
Will Smith.
Oh, get out!
And he wanted, or he was doing, or just done, I don't know what it was. I think he had just done Independence Day and didn't want to do another sci-fi, and he was doing Wild Wild West. And so he took that over the major, right?
Big mistake.
I'm like, I don't know where things would have gone. And I want to say, you know, I could be wrong on this. Like Sandra Bullock was up for the female lead, or somebody else was
for Trinity.
Yeah, for Trinity, and Carrie Ann Moss got it, but I can't
Oh
remember
man,
what I
that
read
would
about
be.
that.
I can see that not going well, and I could see it not being as successful. I
I
think in
could be
that
wrong on that
time,
one, but I do remember Will Smith was up for and
if
I
Will
think
Smith got it, it would have got. I feel like they would have tried to insert in some weird humorous things that
yeah.
wouldn't have fit, and I feel like it was the Matrix is a more of a serious drama sci-fi. Like they didn't really, there was really no comical parts to it,
Although Will
and
Smith made I Am Legend, and I felt like they didn't have any of the weird humor in it, or the Will Smith.
okay, that's fair. That's
You know,
fair.
but like I always think of Prince of Fresh Prince of Bel
Fresh
Air, or
Prince,
yeah,
yeah.
some of that humor bleeding into things.
Well, even
But
in Independence Day, he had like some zingers and stuff like that,
yeah,
just to kind of like be funny and everything like that. And
here and there,
coming
not
off of
like the whole
Independence
thing.
Day,
But
I feel like they would have tried that. Like, whoa, it worked with Independence Day. Let's do it here.
yeah, and I don't know. Although with Keanu Reeves, before Matrix, I always, I'm sure he had been in other stuff. He was in Point Break, I think.
Yeah.
But I only knew him from Parenthood. Did you ever
Well,
see that with Steve
Speed.
Martin?
Well, he was in Parenthood.
The movie. That's what it was called,
Yeah.
right? Parenthood. I'm gonna look this up. With Steve Martin. 1989. Yep.
The first time I ever saw him was Speed, and that was awesome.
He was awesome in that, wasn't he? I
Yeah.
remember taking a friend to see that, and like he wasn't allowed to see our movies, and we didn't think about that when we took him with us. And so he went home and he's like, "Mom, Dad, I saw a guy get his head cut off." And, they're like, "No more movies with Ryan."
I remember my parents took me to see that too. I remember I didn't want to see it, but the rest of the family wanted to see it. But then I watched it and I loved it.
Yeah, that was a good one. And Sandra Bullock was in it too. So
Hell yeah!
so Parenthood. Man, Joaquin Phoenix was in that. Rick Moranis was in it. I need to watch that again. But all I really remember is like there's a younger boy, and he's acting awkward, and Keanu Reeves is like this kind of like hippie, almost like a pothead guy who's dating the kid's sister. And he goes up and talks to the kid and comes back and is like, "Oh, he's okay. He was just weirded out because he got his first boner," or something like that. And that's like how I learned the word boner. And that's what I remember Keanu Reeves with, being
Yeah.
the boner hippie guy in Parenthood. So I don't know. Maybe Will Smith would have done a good job, but part of me is like, it probably still would have been a little humorous. It took a little while before I Am Legend came out. So good movie talk. Okay, so back to this. Where were we?
They're at the cafeteria still.
Cafeteria. Oh yeah. Sheldon starts taking everybody's veggies, and there's a joke about him taking lima beans and peas, and then Howard offers him corn. He says, "Corn's stupid. Why would I want your corn?" And yeah, I didn't completely understand. I mean, I guess he had the atoms and the electrons, so he wouldn't need anything else. But what's wrong with corn? Also, I was also confused. What type of fucking cafeteria do they have that are serving 3 different vegetables? It's like 1 vegetable a day. Everybody gets the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they are a university. Like when I was at UW, even at University of Washington at the hub, there was at least like 6 different restaurants there. But then again, like they all have a very similar meal. Whereas like at the hub, it was all different genres. It was like there was a Mexican place, there was a Chinese place, there's a burger place, and so they were so different that one wouldn't serve lima beans and one wouldn't serve corn.
All right, Sheldon gets done taking the veggies. There's the issue with the corn, and Howard says that they can go to P.F. Chang's before the disco skate night. His mom has coupons. And Leonard kind of looks at him. She's not going, is she? And Howard promised she's not coming this time. So his mom apparently.
I would have loved to see that episode.
I would have too. That's what I was thinking.
A double date and a fifth wheel of Mrs. Wallowitz.
I promise she's not coming this time. And then Raj says he hopes they fall and hurt themselves, and he takes back his lima beans.
Oh, it's because Sheldon corrects him with the plural of coccyges.
Coccyges, yes. And I didn't even write that down because it was such a... I was afraid I was going to... Now I'm getting confused with the other word that I looked up. Colliculus. Colliculus and collages.
Oh, yeah.
I'm all over the place with this one. All right, so he takes his lima beans back. We are jumping forward to the apartment foyer where Bernadette and Penny are walking ahead of the guys, and they are talking about how embarrassed they are. And Penny says the worst part is when everybody watched them go home with Leonard and Howard. That was the most embarrassing part. And then behind them, Leonard and Howard are congratulating themselves, saying they did pretty great. And I have to say, we see a little bit of the action at the end, and I thought they did fucking great. We didn't see Howard and Leonard, but we see Howard and Raj later, and that's something I want to put out there.
I do love that they just really leaned into it. It's disco night at skating and everything, and they just got dressed up, they danced, they did the moves. I love the enthusiasm.
I appreciate that too. Yeah, if you're gonna do it, do it right. Don't half-ass it. Don't I don't know. Or I like people who like to go out and have fun. So
yeah.
But Leonard thinks I even wrote it. Coex. How do you say that? Coecula.
Coccyx.
Coccyx. There we go. He thinks he bruises coccyx. And they walk in, and immediately Penny slips, and as Leonard goes in, he slips as well because Sheldon has marbles out. He's finally... Oh, that's what it is. We finally learn that he's trying to figure out why electrons move like they do through graphene. Basically, they move with no mass through graphene. And I did an IQ point on what this all means. Not necessarily, it's not a right or wrong. It was just to kind of explain this. But apparently, graphene is a two-dimensional sheet of carbon. It's basically one atom thick of carbon atoms. And there have been, I found this on Physics World, documenting other research that's been done, but basically different teams have found that electrons can pass through graphene without having no rest mass. Basically, it's like they have no mass at all. And again, I didn't see that they found a reason for this, but oh man, I didn't write down the date. I want to say it was 2005. Nope, I don't have a date. But it was before the episode aired. It was around that time that researchers were discovering this, or publishing it at least. And one key quote I took away from this was that electrons in graphene, through graphene, move slower than the speed of light, but it was still faster than the speed of an ordinary conductor. So it's basically some strange movement properties where they weren't moving like light, but we can see where Sheldon's going with this, that they are not acting like particles exactly, that they have some differences. Did you find anything on this that can take this further?
I didn't do any research on this.
That's fair. And again, this isn't a right or wrong or fact checking. It was more about what is he talking about, and basically it's about a super thin sheet, two-dimensional sheet of carbon, and electrons can just kind of jump through it, that they aren't hitting or resisting, and they're moving kind of fast. Bernadette then comes in and talks Sheldon into going to bed, and he says that he's looking for the toad of truth. And Leonard says that that's not a physics thing; it's a crazy thing. This is my failed IQ point. I looked it up. It's only from the show. I thought it might be an RPG reference or something. The most I could find was that there was a book called Toad and the Thought of or The Tough Truth by J.D. Carmelinga. But I think it came out like even after the show. So I don't know where he got Toad of Truth from, but it sounded really cool. I imagine like this wise toad.
So it is a crazy thing.
Yeah,
not a physics thing.
Or like we were talking about Talisman, and I mentioned in a previous episode where when they play Talisman, like 4 of them were toads at the same time or something. And when you're a toad, you don't carry any. You lose everything, and you hop around for like 4 or 5 turns with 1 hit point, which means that anybody can kill you. It's a horrible, horrible thing. So I thought maybe it's something to do with that. No. It was just random. This is a crazy thing. Bernadette talks him into going to bed, and they compliment her on how she handled the situation. And she mentions that her mom used to run an illegal daycare in her basement. I like that bit of history, and I'm curious where that might go.
I love Howard's face. Like, it's almost like he knew about it because like she must have told him about it, and he's kind of almost like a little embarrassed that she's talking about it. It's like,
So later on at night, bedroom, a ringtone goes off, and it is laughter. I like Penny saying, "Leonard, you're giggling in your sleep." Like that's her first response. And Leonard says, "No, it's my ringtone." And she goes, "It's creepy." He says it creeps me out too, but he paid $3 for it, so he's going to keep using it, of course. But it's supposed to be the Joker from Batman, although I didn't think it sounded like the Joker. Yeah, I don't know. He picks it up, and it turns out that Sheldon has escaped and is terrorizing the village. So he jettisons off, and next scene he is in a playroom for kids, and Sheldon is trying to think his ideas out using the balls in the ball pit. And the guard says that he understands because his sister has a special kid too. And Leonard says, yeah, Sheldon's really, really special. Sheldon mentions it was easy to break in, which again was kind of weird. Like he's sleep deprived, but he is now actively committing, what did we decide? Not burglary, but not breaking.
It was breaking and entering.
Yeah.
He's not necessarily
burglary,
stealing.
right? Burglary is breaking and entering with the intent to commit a crime. Usually,
I guess he knew what he was doing.
He knew what he was doing. Definitely, so it was weird. But apparently they have a 5-pin tumbler system and a single circuit alarm, so it was easy to break in. Leonard says he's going to drag him out. Sheldon says he'll have to catch him, and that's where we get Leonard jumping in and Sheldon swimming around, jumping up, saying "bazinga" over and over again. This is where, again, I didn't do an IQ point on this, but I looked at Snoops because have you ever heard the urban legends about ball pits?
That they're the most disgusting things in the world?
Well, yeah, and part of that's true. Part of that's not legend. But there's an urban legend that...
It's not a legend, it's true.
This is true. They're dirty. They're dirty. It's like public pools. People do poop in them, but like you always get that urban legend that there's poop in them, and like you never know somebody who has seen the poop, but it's happened. So yeah, as I found that there are reports that diapers come off in ball pits. It's going to happen. Fecal matter has been found, from my understanding, but there was an urban legend going around that a kid basically jumped in, and hours later he said, "Mom, my butt hurts," and she found like a pinprick, and he ends up dying of an overdose of heroin.
My God.
First of all, ain't no heroin addict out there is going to leave a full syringe of heroin in a ball pit. They're going to use that up. You don't leave a lot of money just sitting around, right, for a kid to take. That's kind of like...
And they will dive back in there to try to find it.
Exactly. People lacing Halloween candy with like LSD, that's a lot of money. You don't just hand that out for fun. You take that yourself. Coke.
That's just
You know,
expensive. Not that I would know that.
my big thing is I've never done cocaine because every time I am at a party where I'm like, somebody have Coke, they're like, no, we did it all. That's what happens with cocaine. You don't hand that out, you do it yourself. That's why I've never done it. But so anyways, that is a complete urban legend. The city newspaper that the article was supposedly published in claims that they never published it. Then the urban legend changed to a city that like doesn't exist. The closest thing that ever did happen, and actually when I heard the urban legend, they got stuck and they didn't die of a heroin overdose, but they contracted AIDS, HIV, right? So it became a big thing, like how dirty are the ball pits? And that actually made more sense to me because people could disregard the needle and you wouldn't die from a heroin overdose. You would get sick from it. But that's never happened either. The closest thing I could find was in Australia, a kid was playing at, and it didn't even say a ballroom. It said like a playroom, a recreational area. A kid fell and did get stabbed with a needle. And they took the kid to the doctor, as I understood. Kid was okay. They looped the footage of the ball or the play area back and found the woman who disregarded the needle. So it was like a woman just throwing trash away in a play area. That's what it sounded like to me, but apparently that did happen. So, you know, you want to be careful that's clean. But if anybody says kids are dying from heroin overdoses, that part's false. And you might find a turd or two. Because diapers do come off.
You're scaring me because I know Hunter is at that age where we need to like do more activities and do more, like he's really interested in climbing things now. So he's like hopping on like the ottoman, he's climbing chairs, he's climbing the couch. So we need to take him to places like this. And now I'm like, ugh, do I want to? Should I just build my own ball pit?
Hunter, where did these needles come from? I built this for you.
That is not the pooping area.
Oh, man. All right, so that wasn't even an IQ point. I just looked that up for fun.
All right, we won't call that an IQ point then.
Okay, fair. It's Ryan talking about poop and drugs.
Because I only kind of learned something. My IQ is still flatlining.
I feel like I lost a few intelligent points too. But so we are out of the ball pit. We are later on back in the bedroom, and I'm guessing this is Leonard's bedroom. Like it seemed weird to me because it seemed like he had some decorations that weren't for him, but it didn't look like Penny's bedroom, or maybe it was just from an angle that didn't look right.
You know, I did not make note of the room, but I made note of what Sheldon was wearing, and it looked like he was wearing the exact same thing. I know people could wear multiple pajamas multiple nights in a row, but I think we established earlier on that he has like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like he has different pajamas for each night. So it seems like they're still on the same night.
I think it's the same night. Yeah. And Sheldon comes back in, and this time he's knocking overhead and wakes them up. It freaks Penny out, but apparently Leonard's phone was off. So of course Sheldon, with all his law-breaking antics that he's been up to, has broken into his room, which at least it'd be better if it's Leonard's room. He's not actually breaking and entering into an apartment. He's just opening up somebody's door. It's still kind of weird, but Shelley says he has the answer, and Leonard says, great, you figured out the answer to your problems. Like, no, he's figured out the answer to finding the answer. And Penny finally says, I can't take your roommate anymore. We have to break up. But the answer is Einstein, Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein apparently worked at the patent office while he was coming up with his ideas. And, it's kind of interesting because a lot of big artists and I guess theorists now and mathematicians probably don't make as much money as they could doing their art. Like they usually have to do something else for a while before they become a mathematical genius. I don't know. But anyways, Leonard says that, oh, are you going to move to Washington to join the patent office? And Sheldon says that he would never move to Washington. He could never live in a wheel and spoke shaped city. And I was curious, do you have any ideas why he's against wheel and spoke shaped cities? I'm guessing traffic sucks, but other than that,
Not sure. I actually didn't. I thought about looking into that or what that meant, but I didn't.
like all I could gather is that you have like the center of town and you have main roads going out and kind of parts of the city built up in circles around it, like a radius, like an atom. And I know I've been to DC. It was been a while, but I always thought cities like that were cool. I don't know what he would have wrong with them. Certainly Seattle is... I've heard stories that Seattle was built by two different people. And so like the gridlock, like it changes like halfway through the city. And like that is supposed to be why part of it, but also the city burned down and they started rebuilding like after the city was, I don't know, but
And it's
infrastructure is
like,
all weird.
yeah, and then there's the underground part of it too.
Yeah.
That's a
There's
fun
still,
little tour. If anyone makes it to Seattle, the underground tour is amazing.
I was going to say, there's no ball pit, no heroin needles. Well, there might be heroin needles. You don't know what you'll find.
Well, there's a lots of well, no, actually no. I think it's still part of the same tour of the creation of Seattle. It's littered with hookers. So,
oh yeah,
you know,
different kind of ball pit.
Yep.
Oh, you can cut that out. That's horrible.
Mic drop. Podcast over. Let's go. You're not going to top that.
Wow. So anyways, for some reason, he is not happy with Washington, but he has decided to find a mindless job to allow his brain to work on the problem in the background while he's doing something meaningless. Yeah. And...
well, I did some IQ points on this.
ooh, yeah.
So, he says that he is going to find a similarly menial job where his basal ganglia is occupied with a routine task, freeing his prefrontal cortex to work quietly in the background on his problem. So I wanted to see if this will actually work. So this was I would say is an almost failed IQ point because I researched this and I couldn't find any structurally sound information. So I almost gave up until I finally found it.
Nice. So this is kind of like a different IQ point, but a follow-up because he was trying to engage it from his peripheral, and now it's what if his mind's doing something else? Will the back part of his mind continue working?
Yep. So the basal ganglia is a group of brain structures linked together that basically control your body's ability to move. The basal ganglia manages the signals your brain sends that help you move your muscles. So that's basically like he's going to engage that. So he's basically saying, I'm going to move around and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to engage the prefrontal cortex in the background, which is an important part of your brain. It is at the front of the frontal lobe, which is immediately behind the forehead. It affects your behavior, personality, and ability to plan. It is where we process moment-to-moment input from our surroundings. It affects your behavior, personality, and ability to plan. It is where we process moment-to-moment input from our surroundings. Compare that input to past experiences and then react to them. It is where we manifest our insight, foresight, and planning capabilities into the actions that define who we are. So in a very huge nutshell, it's the part of the brain that helps us problem solve. So now the question is, does your prefrontal cortex operate while you're conducting a menial task? So this is where I almost failed because I found a lot of information to support this claim, but it was all on blogs. and like it's not the most reliable source. It was blog.sandglass.com, medium.com, and lifehacker.com.
I was
So
gonna say, just what are they called? Personal accounts, right? That I know that for me, like if I have a problem, like if I'm writing and I have a problem and I go take a shower, it might come to me. And I think it was I was just at a panel with Rebecca Yaros, the writer of Fourth Wing, if anybody reads that. And I believe it was her. She said that going for drives, maybe it wasn't her, but that's what I'm thinking, that while she's driving, ideas will come to her and fix plot holes in her story. But again, those are just, it's not any actual evidence. It's just, like you said, blogs. So what did the blog say?
Well, the blogs say that menial tasks can help you think and lead you to the eureka moment. Usually, when you're doing a menial task, your body and brain are able to take over through muscle memory, using the basal ganglia for habit forming and your cerebra. Oh my god.
I feel like that with all the
Oh
words
my god.
today.
Cerebellum
So,
for muscle memory, freeing your brain to think about bigger things. However, if you start daydreaming or listening to music, it might not be as effective. At this stage, when you're doing your menial task, you should be thinking about something important. While you're thinking about this important subject while doing menial work, it's basically a recovery time for your brain, similar to how your body needs to rest after exercise. This is the moment when your brain can truly process the information and sort through it. So again, all that information is on blogs. But you know what? It makes sense. Like what they're saying is very logical. But I was looking for something more scientific to really back it up. Like what is happening with your brain?
yeah.
And I was able to find a more reliable source on Psychology Today. It was an article written by PhD Dana Lee Bagley. She says, what might be explaining what's happening is that the prefrontal cortex is called what they're calling recharging. Our prefrontal cortex is constantly being used throughout the day. Research has shown that the prefrontal cortex is different from other parts of the brain. Much of the brain functions continuously, whereas the prefrontal cortex is more like a battery that gets depleted and needs recharging. Recharging can be anything from getting good sleep, eating healthy foods, engaging in a physical activity, or a social connection. All of these examples are similar to menial tasks, and they take your mind off the problem-solving topic you may have. So basically, all this stuff is saying and proving that when you put your body on cruise control and you actually let your prefrontal cortex rest and work in the background, you actually can hit that eureka moment. And I will say that this actually happens to me all the time. Like I kind of like do some chores, I clean, I mow the lawn, all that stuff like that, and I kind of just kind of think about my issues or my problem or something that needs to be solved, and then just out of nowhere, it hits me.
It reminds me of what Bernadette said earlier too about the if you stay up too long, the can't remember the exact terminology, but the connections kind of damper and you stop thinking as well because what she say, the not dopamine, but basically the receptors are not as lively. And Sheldon even agrees with her that things are not connecting or processing as much, and sleeping helps them, like you said, recharge, rebuild, relax a little bit, and then you wake up and you're sharper for it because you've allowed some rest. So like even if you do something that lets your mind kind of go to sleep in the background, maybe that's a good thing after a while. Although for me, I feel like I just forget what I was thinking about. Like, shit, what was I having a problem with? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I got.
That's why I'm afraid to have a kid. Like, oh yeah, I forgot to pick my kid up. Oh, God, no.
I hear horror stories about how parents like forget that their kid is in the car. They drive into the garage and they just like leave them in the garage and they die. It's like stuff like that freaks me out.
Mm-hmm.
So like I try to be like super conscious every time I'm with Hunter, like everywhere I go. It's like, don't forget the kid. Don't forget the kid.
And don't forget what am I doing? I'm taking a bath. No.
Oh God.
That's I'm terrified of it. And even with the dog too, like I've noticed, like I'll be packing up to go somewhere, and I'll put the dog in the car, and I'll get distracted. And I'm only gone for like literally like 5 seconds, but I realized like I was going to turn the car on, and I have to stop myself and go back and turn the car on so that she's cool while I'm loading up the rest of the stuff. And I just get distracted, and I can see how other people get distracted too. It terrifies me. So anyways, good rest helps mental receptors recept, I guess.
It's recharging. That's what they call it.
Okay, so we at the job office, and we have a guest star, Yardley Smith, as Sandy. And I knew her voice right away, and I'm sure I saw her in other she's been in other shows here and there, but most famously known as Lisa Simpson.
This is crazy because I did not recognize. I grew up watching Simpsons religiously, and I did not recognize her voice. And this is kind of just like Crawley from like the old episode with the cricket. How it's kind of like so much attention is going to this actress, and I'm just like, who is this? Am I supposed to know who she is?
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't until like it was like years later when I was watching a YouTube video about like guest stars on Big Bang Theory, and she was on that list, and they mentioned that it's Lisa Simpson. I was like, oh my God, I had no clue.
It's like I'm gonna look this up, but going to Simpsons, Maggie only has said like one word, right?
Daddy.
Yeah.
Like, officially, yeah.
And
or Dada.
Dada.
I think it's Daddy.
And who did her voice? Maggie's first word was provided by the Academy Award winning actress Elizabeth Taylor. And I should probably know who that is offhand. But I remember when it was done, my parents were like, oh my God, that's Elizabeth Taylor. And I'm like, am I supposed to know who that is?
Wait, they recognized her voice? Like,
yeah,
her voice
it was like
based
a
off that
huge
one
thing.
word?
Like, it was like a big press release, and they heard it and they knew. Like, the whole thing was, it was almost like, I remember it being almost as big as Who Shot Mr. Burns, who was actually also Maggie. So she's like the biggest character. Yeah. Oh, she was in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Taming of the Shrew. Don't know the Sandpiper. But yeah, a lot of stuff that I'm not familiar with, but like, it's weird that sometimes we have these guest characters and they're like huge people, and like, I don't know who the fuck that is, and other people are like, yeah. Alright, so Yardley Smith as Sandy. And Sheldon tells her that he's looking for a menial job like hers. And she says, thank you for noticing it. She's menial employee of the month. I love her.
I don't think Sheldon knows what menial means.
Or that it's based offensive.
Or like none of the jobs that he's picking, with the exception of like the first job at the restaurant as a busboy. I will say I can say this because I was a busboy for like 2 years, and it is very menial. It is like you go on cruise control. You don't have to think about anything. You just grab dishes, reset things up, and everything like that. It's like you don't have to think at all.
That's what, when I interned, in fact, I didn't even put that as a boring job because I didn't think it was that boring. But I interned for a summer at a brewery, and they had me all over the place. And I was fine doing any job they had me, and they're like, okay, nobody likes this job. You got to clean kegs for the day. I'm like, whatever, because they allowed me to wear headphones, and I wore headphones and listened to audiobooks and could just like basically autopilot listen to audiobook, and I was done for the day. But I remember putting bottles in boxes and closing taping the boxes closed, and it was just like autopilot, bottles tape, bottles tape, bottle, and for like 8 hours, and I'm listening to an audiobook, and it was I liked it. But I think you're right that because he talks about construction, I don't think I could hang sheetrock or do anything with heavy machinery and go on autopilot.
Even the way he describes it, like that vision of the 50s when you're on like a steel girder over the metropolis and everything, is like, dude, you would not want to do that on cruise control.
Right? And he even says, and I think I made a note of this, that and again, I don't think he knows how offensive this is, but he says he's thinking of the bottom class and how they've erected stuff throughout history. I believe he says until they are dead and like are pushed into the sand in which they were working. And I'm like, so you're basically saying the lower class doesn't deserve to exist, or that if they do, they deserve to be slaves. And I'm like, wow, that was an intense line that he just kind of throws out there. And again, he's going on like, what, 3 days of no sleep, but still, Jesus Christ, Sheldon.
Yeah.
But again, like if you were a slave and you were being forced to push bricks around to build pyramids, that's not menial. That's a life or death situation the whole fucking way. All right, so she says she has nothing like that, but she has hanging sheetrock, and he goes, that's great. What's sheetrock? And she goes, how about delivering for a florist, but he doesn't drive? And she goes, okay, what's your last job? And he tells her that he is working with string theory. And
senior theoretical particle physicist at Caltech, focusing on M theory, or in layman's terms, string theory.
She goes, all right, gets up, and you hear her yelling for security.
Yep.
So I like how he just sits there too, like.
I
did like.
I didn't. It took me a while to understand like what happened, and it kind of just clicked in. Like, oh, she just must think that he's a crazy person.
Yeah, or either he's making up stuff, or the fact that he's there, that she can't work with him, that it's hopeless, because like, why the hell is he going from that to construction? Something's gone wrong.
Yeah, something's not right here. I need security.
Okay, so we are at the Cheesecake Factory now, and Sheldon is busting tables, and he's behind Penny saying, watch out. He says that her job was the most mind-numbing job conceivable, so he just picked it up. It turns out that he's not even working there, right? That he just picked up a bucket and has started working. And I was actually going to do a IQ point on this, but I didn't. But I don't think he's legally able to do that. Between insurance issues and between fair labor, that was the thing, Fair Labor Standards Act, the Cheesecake Factory could get into big trouble for allowing somebody to be doing work who is not actually on the payroll or legally required to be there in some way, shape, or form. So I didn't find a whole lot on that, but I felt that was weird that he kind of broke out of his not robotic, but legal standards to say I can just start a job here, because that's not how it works, and especially in big cities, maybe in small cities. But anyways, I do get a point for being like Sheldon here, because he says His three most boring jobs, mind-numbing jobs, are toll booth attendant, genius booth at Apple stores, and what Penny does. And he says that he couldn't do the toll booth work because he could not stand the idea of touching coins. And it fucking grosses me out. Touching coins grosses me out.
Are you thinking about ass pennies?
I'm thinking about ass panties. I'm thinking about how many drugs are actually on bills. Like, how many people have actually snorted coke through like dollar bills or $20 bills. People swallowing coins coming out their ass and they just use it anyways. Falling into toilets, pulling them out and using them in a candy machine. Coins gross me out. I had to clean the other day and I had like 50 cents on the counter and I strongly considered just shoving it in the
rushing it into the garbage.
Yeah, I'm like, 50 cents. Is it worth touching the goddamn coins? I ended up putting them in my car in the coin receptacle because I figure if I need coins in the coin receptacle, I'm touching other shit that's also really gross. So it's okay. And I have hand sanding in my car. I can make it all. Anyways, point is, I don't like touching coins. So 1 point for like Sheldon there.
Yeah.
Ass pennies.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I handled coins. Just because you don't need to these days. It's so rare.
And like if
even
you're doing
money,
it,
like
it costs more money to handle coins than to not handle them. I've talked to brewers who have like eliminated coins completely, that they just round everything because they just round up to everything. That it costs more money to count coins than to just round up.
Yeah, because this time is money.
And exactly. If you're paying $15 an hour and you're counting out 33 cents in pennies, fuck it. Round up the dollar and you're good to go.
Yeah.
So, don't need to. They're heavy. They're dirty. They're dirty. I would think differently, although everyone would think differently. If a penny was actually worth like $5 and a quarter was worth $100, like we'd be using coins completely differently. And nobody would be eating them. Babies wouldn't be pooping them in their diapers and the ball pits.
Along with the needles.
And with the needles, exactly. All right, so I did an IQ point here on most boring jobs. Did you do anything on boring jobs?
I didn't.
Oh, I thought you were. I was curious what we would come up with. So I looked at a few places and honestly, most of the job sites listed the same kind of couple of things over and over again. Data entry, accountants, and tax consultants. And I figured these are boring because you actually have to be paying attention because there's so many like very specific number entries and you can't make typos or anything. So you can't like go on autopilot, but also like it's menial. That's what the menial, like it's very boring. And I was talking earlier about having to do some data entry for a trip I'm going on that I'm getting reimbursed by my school. And I had to do the data logs, and even an hour's worth of it, I was making mistakes. I was screwing up, and I'm like, I'm awful at this. I feel, if you can do that and get by, kudos, because man, my mind was not processing it. So those were the three most boring jobs, but I went to Reddit and found boring jobs, just random spiel of boring jobs that people had and that they were talking about. And one guy said that he was the guy who would put plastic rings around meat. And I assumed he meant like turkey legs. And he goes, that was me for like 10 hours a day, wrapping up the meat with plastic rings. Again, we have autopilot that you can go on, but God, that sounds horrible. Several of them were saying data entry. One of them did say toll booth worker. So Sheldon was right there. One person said that they were what I can only call as a fire looker. They were working at a university that apparently their dorms were basically fire hazards. So they had to pay a person to sit and look for fires. They had to have somebody on staff for 24 hours a day to get insurance. So they just sat there and watched fires. Then somebody said production operative at a fish processing line. So it was boring because you're just doing the same thing processing fish, but it was also very cold and pretty smelly. And somebody replied with the Simpsons quote, hook goes in, guts come out, goes in.
Knife goes in, guts come out. That's how Nagasaki Fish Co. is all about. Something like that, yeah.
I love that episode.
Yeah.
And then the last one I got was
Mr. Sparkle, right?
Mr. Sparkles.
It was that episode.
Homer, if you haven't seen it, Homer finds a box of like laundry detergent and his face is on it. And he like travels all the way to Japan to ask, why am I Mr. Sparkles? Right? He is and it turns out that he is Mrs. Sparkles is just the conglomeration of a light bulb and a fish processing plant. And when you put their images together, it makes Homer's face.
Yeah.
Why am I Mr. Sparkles? The last person said sewing machine operative. And I would say for me, the most boring job was checkout at Walmart. For a year, I checked people out. I was the cashier. And I remember I had my wisdom teeth out. And, okay, I'm going to say I didn't do this. Somebody I knew who also worked at Walmart and had their wisdom teeth out like me save their drugs because taking the drugs to help with Walmart was better than helping with the pain from the wisdom teeth. So that was my most boring job. Not to say Walmart was a bad company. It was just that being a cashier was, and I couldn't, like, you couldn't listen to audiobooks. You couldn't think about anything because you had to actually converse with people and you had to think about how were they paying. I think things might be a little better now because people don't pay with cash as much, but back then it was a lot of cash transactions. Oh man, that was difficult. But yeah, how about you? Most boring job?
My most boring job was actually doubles up with my most exciting and fun job at the same time. It was cook at a golf course.
Ooh.
So it is very exciting and engaging and a huge moneymaker in the summertime. But in the wintertime, nobody plays golf. Nobody even practices. Nobody even because it was an outdoor range.
Yeah.
Too. So we had heat lamps and everything, but it still gets cold. So in the wintertime, it's just like dead. And you're there and you're kind of just waiting and you can only clean so much. Mm-hmm. So I remember just reading a lot of books just because it's like, well, I already cleaned everything. I already prepped everything. No one's coming in. I guess I'm just going to read this book.
I'm just reminded of like The Shining, but at a golf course.
Kind of. I read the slowest and the slowest day of the year where I literally got 0 customers was and I think only maybe one person came to the entire facility the entire day. Super Bowl Sunday. But we had a good time because I went out and bought some chicken and we had a deep fryer, so I made the entire staff fried chicken.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and no one was showing up, so it's like, you know what? Let's just have a beer. Fuck it.
Right.
There's no one here. It's Super Bowl. No one's going to come here to watch the Super Bowl.
No one will ever know.
Yeah. Except that security camera.
Just wave and smile. Oh man.
Yep, that was my most boring job. Otherwise, like being a cook, being a chef is very engaging.
That's what with teaching, most of it setting up classes, finding stuff to teach and talk about. I love it. I love reading stuff and being like, shit, I want to talk about this in my class today. And talking with students, sometimes I'm drained and it's kind of difficult just because like maybe I'm sick or I'm tired or something. Grading sucks because grading is a lot of just sitting there, and it's almost like data entry to some point, entering the datas and explaining, typing up stuff. But actually getting ready for and lecturing, I love that. It turns out, yeah, Sheldon never got hired and he came in and just started working. Penny says she's a waitress, not a busboy. Sheldon agrees and then throws down his dishes and starts taking orders. We
And
jump
again,
to
being a server is not more menial.
I was going to say, I
It's like-
thought busing was a lot more menial. That
Way more menial.
So
So
you
it's
don't have to deal with
taking-
customers, right?
Yeah, taking orders and engaging with people, that is not how you shut your mind off.
Yeah.
Like, you actually have to process and engage what they're saying.
I remember one of my random stories. I owned a coffee bar one time. I might have mentioned this. Coffee kiosk at a medical facility in the middle of Nebraska. And I just got so like, I'm not good with customer care. I'm good with students. When students are respectful to me, I'm respectful to them, and it works out great. But with customers where they feel entitled to something, I'm basically like, fuck you, I will burn this facility down, or not the facility, my kiosk down before I offer you anything. And, you know, I never said that out loud, but I have the utmost respect for waiters and waitresses. Even the ones that I've disliked that I thought were shoddy or disrespectful to me, I know that their days have probably been longer and harder than I can comprehend. And I just think back to like the 4 hours a day I worked at that kiosk for like a summer. And, you know, a lot of the customers were great, and I never had a horrible customer, but there were some that were just like, yeah, I'm not paying myself enough to give a shit, and I never wanted to be here.
Oh man, yeah. I worked at a tennis shop for like a long time. After college, it was just like the job I worked through college and part of post college, and it was at one of the sites was in the Redmond Bellevue area. And if anybody doesn't know, in Washington, the ritzy area is Bellevue, and then just going northeast, you hit Redmond, which is also a kind of a ritzy area because that's where the Microsoft campus is. And we just got the most pretentious clients at the tennis shop there. It was just like, they're just so rude and condescending, and they talk down at you all the time. It's like, oh my God.
Actually, funny because coming back from Albert Levine to get out of the traffic from the concert, we took GPS's directions and ended up from Auburn directly onto 405 instead of 5. And Kelsey was driving, and she's like, I hate driving on 405. Everybody's so pretentious. And I'm like, I don't know how you can tell that from driving, but it's because it's the Bellevue area. Bellevue, Redmond, Kirkland, right? And it's just very ritzy, and everybody, I don't know how you can tell that from driving, but it seems like
I don't know. I can't describe it, but they're driving so pretentiously.
So pretentiously. And it's also partially because it's the only part of Seattle where they have a toll lane too. And so like it's the toll booth lane, but you can't get into it. It like automatically charges you, and everybody goes 90 in that lane, and like just gets it gets
weird. Yeah, the 405 got really crappy.
Yeah.
In the last decade.
And she's like, at least on 5, like, I know what I'm dealing with. People might be shit there, but it's my kind of shit. I can deal with it.
That's the kind of shit that I like.
I grew up in that shit.
It's a ball pit.
It's a ball pit. It's not that pretentious 405. So yeah, I agree that I don't understand why he's switching to waiting. That's just like a dig at Penny because busboying is a lot more menial and just shutting your
Yeah.
brain off.
I
Um,
feel like a lot of like as we see these little plot holes throughout this episode, I feel like it was kind of just lazy writing for convenience. Like
yeah,
it would be
and
funny if this happened. So how do we get from point A to point B? Hopefully no one notices and we'll just do it. Well, sorry, we noticed.
we noticed we did the IQ points.
Yeah. Bet you didn't think that was going to happen.
You never knew, did you? It's been 15 years, but we did them. All right, so we're at the Cheesecake Factory, and Sheldon brings the guys food. Leonard quizzes Sheldon on his food, and Sheldon like perfectly knows everything, and I respect him for like getting everything right. But I love the scene when Leonard says, "You know why I'm doing this, right?" And Sheldon says, "Yes." So he understands, and I get one
He's
point
self-aware.
one point for being like Leonard here. Because I
You're
would
spiteful.
so do this. Fuck with a friend just to show them how they irritate me. And not even a friend. I'm thinking mostly my mom. But I could definitely say turning the tides, turning the things around on them. So 1 point like Leonard, I understand that. I'm also very sarcastic, so I think I mentioned before too that if I feel like a question is stupid, I give it a stupid answer, and people are always like, "Why would you even bother answering?" I'm like, "Why would you bother asking?" Yeah, I understand Leonard. Leonard says he heard of another guy who had a breakdown, and that guy ended up buying a van and shampooing dogs for a living. Howard says that they could all buy Sheldon a van, but Raj mentions that Sheldon is afraid of dogs, and apparently that's the only thing wrong with that plan, so they don't do it. Penny comes over to take their order. I do like that scene. She's like, "Okay, guys, sorry, we're swamped." But she realizes they have their food, and they mention Sheldon's already taken their order. She says Sheldon doesn't even work there. And Leonard mentions, "Well, sorry, honey, we were starting to wonder if you did as well." So she's been behind. Then they hear a crash and Sheldon dropping plates. He looks down and it's his eureka moment. And in the plates, he sees the answer. And he realizes electrons move through the graphene as a wave, not as a particle. And he claims this is when people should applaud, not when you drop the plates. But this
and just
is where
a little PSA: if you're at a restaurant and somebody drops a plate, don't clap.
don't clap. I feel like
it's rude.
at a
Don't do
restaurant it's rude. At a beer fest, it's necessary.
Someone's gonna break a glass at some point.
Yeah, if they're breaking a glass at a beer fest, they need to know that they have had a party foul.
Yeah.
I'm saying that in the next beer fest, I'm gonna fuck something up, and I'm like, don't clap.
Yeah. And everyone will laugh and clap.
It's like, Rob, you're gonna be over in Pennsylvania. You'll be like, I'm like, you're not even with me, Rob. I knew what happened.
Something is in the wind.
Something in the wind. Ryan has fucked up.
The old mental Ryan fuckometer.
It's going off now.
Yeah. Wee.
Alright, so he starts to leave. Penny says, isn't he going to clean up? And he ends the scene by saying, "I don't work here."
I do like that. He's like, hello, are you going to clean that? I was like, why? I don't work here. So it bounces.
And then we end at the skating rink, and Howard and Raj are skating and dancing. I love the scene. I think it might be my favorite part. And Howard says happy now. So apparently Howard felt bad enough that he took Raj skating to just them.
Yeah.
And they are doing a fucking dynamite job. Like, I wouldn't expect, they're not experts. They're trying. And Raj says he's on a cloud and tells Howard to swing him. And they go back and forth, and they're doing it to One Night in Bangkok, which is a phenomenal song. So
I do like that they show like their surrogate marriage.
yeah, right.
Where Howard, it kind of clicked into Howard, like, oh no, I offended you. I made you upset. All right, how can I make this up? Okay, let's just go dance,
honey. Swing me.
And Raj is just so desperate for like love and affection that he's like, okay, I'll go for it. Swing me.
I did like that scene. And then the final scene is back at the ball pit, and Sheldon is jumping up saying bazingas left and right, and Leonard cannot catch him.
Yep.
That's the episode. We are on the vanity card, and we got a long one, but it actually was one of the better vanity cards I feel like we've read so far. So I'm happy to have this one.
I haven't read it at all. I actually make it an effort to not read any of the vanity cards beforehand.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I should do that. I don't read the ones you have to read. I say, fuck, Rob will have fun with that. I always read mine.
It's story time. Rob will just read this to me.
All right, so this one is Chuck Lorre Productions 275. Ask Chuck. Dear Chuck, I was at a recent party. I found myself in an awkward situation when the host, a devout atheist, sneezed between spoonfuls of his gazpacho. Without thinking, I said, God bless you. He gave me a withering look and said, as if to a child, golly gee, I sure hope he does. The other guests exploded with laughter while I imploded with humiliation. To avoid future embarrassment, what is the correct response when an atheist sneezes? Troubled with a chew. Dear Troubled, first, a little background information saying God bless you. Following a sneeze is thought by some to have originated in the 6th century in order to protect the sneezer from falling ill to the bubonic plague. Another possible origin is that people once believed that the devil entered the body during a sneeze, and saying God bless you could help ward him off. Since the plague was killed something like 200 million people, and the words God bless you have, in all likelihood, been said countless times to Glenn Beck, we can safely assume the phrase has no real power against germs or demonic possession. What it does contain is simple human courtesy, as a means by which we express concern for one another. As to how to respond to a sneezing atheist, well, that's easy. Simply say, sounds like you're coming down with something. I hope you don't die and rot in a box. And first of all, I have to say, going back... Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, like, I feel like, God, like, there's a lot of layers to this one. And you're right, that this actually is a good one. Because,
right?
like the whole devout atheist thing where, like, they're kind of just, like, mocking it and everything like that, I feel like just let it go. Like, bro, like, why'd you have to call it out? Like, that's just rude. I get that you're an atheist and everything and you don't believe in that stuff, but that person will, like, it's like how Chuck answered.
Yeah.
Like, he or she should have just realized, oh, they're giving me a courtesy, let it go. But instead they had to mock them. It's kind of like,
I don't know any atheists who mock like that. Like, I've never met one. I guess I don't know every atheist in the world, but I hang out with a lot of scientists and liberal arts students who don't give a shit about religion. So,
are you atheist?
I think I'd consider myself more agnostic.
Okay.
I like to say with Ghost, I have had a number of supernatural experiences, but I don't believe in ghosts. So it's kind of the same thing. Like, I'm not sure what to believe, but I don't think God bless you is really religious, and I don't think it's going to help you from dying from the plague. But at the same time, it is a custom that has been with us for centuries, and I think it's basically saying, I hope you're not sick. I hope you're okay. And I accept it for that.
For some reason, I did not know this part about the plague. I always thought it was bless you was because like when I could be completely wrong. It could be an old wives' tale, but ever since I was a child, I heard that whenever you sneeze, your heart skips a beat. Is that not true? Did someone just lie to me about that? And like because like your heart is doing something weird that like you're supposed to bless you that you're still alive.
I don't think I've ever heard that one.
That's what I heard growing up.
I have heard, and we're going back to The Simpsons with this one. The Simpsons are running this episode. Bart sneezes. I believe Bart sneezes. I can't remember. I have to go back, but I can't remember what episode. I think it's the one where Bart loses his soul because he signs it away to Milhouse for some reason. And Milhouse says, bless you. And he says, you have to say bless you because when you sneeze, your soul tries to escape, and God bless you forces it back down in. And like that's how I remember it. So but that kind of goes with the devil one, that people thought that maybe there was a devil trying to like incorporate and bring itself in. So yeah, who knows? But I side on Chuck on this one, that if any of my atheist friends tried that, I'd probably say, are you fucking kidding me? Are you sick at dinner with me? Are you going to get me sick? And then put it on them, right? I was being really nice, not bringing up the fact that you're fucking sneezing on me. But now that you're going to pull me out, I'm going to call you out. Why are you sneezing at dinner?
Like, you need to leave.
You got to go. I don't care if this is your house. My house now.
How dare you infect me? You are patient 0.
How dare you, sir? Good day, sir.
Good day, sir. I said good day, sir.
I said good day. God bless you.
It kind of reminds me. This situation kind of reminds me of the people who are like, "Hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm good. No, you're well." Like, yeah, I was doing good earlier, but now I'm shitty because I'm next to you, motherfucker.
I'm doing pretty bad. Thanks for asking.
And now I'm bad.
Bad. How about you? Do you
go get the Why don't you go get infected and die?
Go plague yourself, bitch. Are you atheist, agnostic?
I'm Christian.
Christian.
Yeah.
I grew up Catholic, and I read somewhere. In fact, no, I know where it is. It's an anthology of a book that's supposed to be one of the best horror anthologies, best collections of horror stories ever, and it's phenomenal. But in it, they claim that
Twilight.
It's Twilight. They claim that most horror is from lapsed Christians. And there's this notion, at least horror in our understanding in U.S. civilization, I guess, not U.S. civilization, European, English, whatever, that a lot of horror comes from feeling guilty about our sins and not believing in God, and how do we deal with not believing in God. And so you get things like The Exorcist. Like, if we don't believe in God, will this happens? If we resort to sins that the Bible tells us are wrong, will we get slashed? So not saying that all horror writers are lapsed Christians, but very, very interesting statement. I'm like, that's not true. And then somebody's like, Ryan, weren't you Catholic? I'm like, oh shit. So, I can't speak on this. I lost all credibility.
Well, just know, whether you're atheist, Christian, or voodoo, or anything like that, if someone just says bless you, just know it's a courtesy.
Gesundheit, gazpacho, whatever. If they say anything after you sneeze and it's not making fun of you for sneezing, you just take it and roll with the punches.
You know what? Moving forward, if you sneeze, I'm just gonna shoo you out. Get out!
Shoo,
You
shoo,
got to go!
Get.
Don't you infect us!
Don't bring your bubonic plague here. And that's the episode.
We did it. All right, another one down. Let's count some IQ points.
I have only 1 point on each side, so I am at 86 to 91.
All right, and we got 6 IQ points.
That's a good call. It
Not
was a
too
short
shabby.
episode, too. It was a short episode.
All right, well, any last minute things about this episode?
That's it for me.
Last minute thoughts? Yeah, me too. Yeah, overall, like, I still like this episode. I still really enjoy it. I see the plot holes. I see the inconsistencies in behavior, but I still just really like this episode.
After talking to you, I've started liking it more, and, I have problems with inconsistencies, but, man, I loved Howard and Raj discoing together. That made me happy, and I like some of the other points, and, it was a little bit easier of humor for me, and just a good episode to put on the background and do some work. It's menial.
Yeah. Bazinga.
Bazinga.
Well, thanks again for listening. Hopefully everybody is still listening and awake.
God bless you all.
Yep. Well, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok at Theoretical Nonsense Pod, and email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. Leave us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and we will see you next time when we talk Season 3, Episode 15, The Large Hadron Collision. Bye.
Bye.
This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required. Our intro and outro music is by Alex Grohl. Thanks for listening. That is not the pooping area.